That's fine. So I've done a lot of stuff basically. I've been around for a while and I was very much driven by shame. I had my little girl, I became a mum when I was 17. And so I had a lot of I had this need to overachieve, and I found that actually the more that I did, the better I was received by people from, family who were very disappointed that, I was supposed to be the first to go off to university. I'm second generation immigrant. My dad came over. He was an older Jamaican parent. He came over in the Windrush years. Um, like so many of that generation, wanting their kids to do better than they did. And I got pregnant. So, he was devastated. Mum was also not happy. Um, and so, yeah, I found myself with no four GCSEs. I'd been expelled from school at 15, largely because childhood had been dysfunctional. Um, but yeah, I was this young adult with no sense of purpose. And so I thought, okay, I'll have a baby. And so that's what I did. And my daughter came along when I was 18, and this incredible health visitor, I realized very quickly that actually my dream of recreating this sort of family, which would, white picket fence existence and stability and all of that stuff, was not going to be possible being on benefits, living in a hostel in King's Cross. And so that sort of sent me into quite a dark place within my own self, not to mention just adapting to trying to look after a child as a child. And this incredible health visitor came along one day to visit me when my daughter was about 3 months old. And I sort of shared how I was feeling. And she said, "Why don't you go back to school?" And she was the first person that had suggested that it might be a possibility to still achieve something with my life. I think family, friends, and the media very much at that time, was really, particular publication, national newspaper was really, making teen motherhood the sort of scourge of society. And there was a lot around young girls supposedly going off to get pregnant to get council flats, which of course it's never that simple. And I really felt the weight of that. And this woman saw something in me that I hadn't yet seen in myself. So I did. I went off back to college, excuse me, and then to university, and just started to really find my sense of self in achieving, which so many of us do unconsciously. And I then just began to really be a workaholic and work all the hours, internships at the BBC, during the week, working for a shoe shop to earn money, uni, commuting 40 miles 3 days a week. I just did everything I could, because there was no way I could get to the end of that degree and have that student loan and not have a job whilst paying nursery fees. And of course, doing pays dividends. And so one thing led to another, and I went on to create, a career that was, by in society's terms, very successful in media, working as a national journalist, and then, yeah, as Angela read in my bio, some of the most well-known people in the world. I found myself flying around the world on these private jets with clients, and then going home to the 15th floor of my council block where I live with my little daughter. So there was this huge contrast in my life, which I think has been so powerful in it's both expanding my consciousness, but also giving me, making me who I am. There's a real beauty and a conflict in having been apart and sort of navigating those two worlds, both which come with their own set of challenges. And became an accidental entrepreneur in 2006. So my daughter was 6, 7 at that point, and I was on my lunch break of this, media career, where I'd walked into the office on the first day. I think Simon Cowell was in the lift, and there were sort of 40 paparazzi outside for Rebecca Lewis. Remember that story, the David Beckham story? Mad world. And I was in the middle of this career, and my daughter was going through this stage where she didn't like her hair, and she's got beautiful afro hair, and I used to style it in sort of bunches, so they'd stick up like Minnie Mouse. She was complaining that the boys couldn't see the blackboard because her hair was sticking up rather than her bunches falling down in the way that, you know, Caucasian hair does, or even mine. And so I went looking for a greeting card, which would be a little brown-skinned princess, and I was just going to write, "You're perfect as you are," and just discovered there was absolutely nothing in the high street that was representative of all of us, right? All the princesses were blonde. I mean, all the angels were blonde. And this was a time, you know, 2006, when no one was really having these conversations. D&I was not on the agenda in the way that it is today. Um, and so in that moment, I just thought, well, I'll do it, because if I can't find it for my daughter and I feel it's really important, I know other parents and other people will be experiencing this in different ways. And so without a clue as to how to start a business, you know, I didn't know business people. You know, my dad was a minicab driver. My mum was a special needs teaching assistant. I didn't have examples of people outside of my work. You know, I didn't have those kind of early sort of fundamental reference points for people with ideas who'd made them a reality. It wasn't what people, you know, did where I came from. And so I kind of muddied through that, but yeah, it became successful in the sense that we were the first. We got a trial with Clinton Cards, who were the biggest retailer in cards at the time, and they rolled us out to 100 stores, and then we were picked up for distribution in America and South Africa, which was incredible. So, you know, with apartheid, so still really not that far away, particularly, you know, 15 years ago. And it took me on this amazing journey. And I started to feel this conflict between the values that I had personally and I guess my sense of purpose, which was starting to rise, you know, in me as I got into my late 20s, and the environment that I was really operating in, this kind of media, showbiz world. And so, you know, I guess emboldened by how well Colorblind had done, I started my own PR agency and started to work more with entrepreneurs, initially sort of, and still celebrities, people like Samuel Jackson and Kelly, and later on Meghan Markle, but working with them in areas of their life that was not the celebrity. It was their not for profit, or it was their mission. And so that sort of purpose journey was really, you know, becoming more and more who I was and who I am. But I was still a complete workaholic and was really struggling behind the scenes of winning all these awards and being celebrated as this teen mum made good. I got my MBE when I was 34, and so that went on until 2016, and then my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and we had, you know, having had a challenging time, you know, through his expectations of me, and then you know, our relationship had taken all sorts of iterations, but we'd become very, very close by that point, and he had really been the sort of consistent figure in my life. And so I stopped to care for him through his, you know, his terminal cancer, and it was the first time in my life that I had been present. You know, I would work all day, and then I would get my daughter to bed, and then I'd be on to the next project. I was constantly thinking about the next achievement, building, working towards this elusive thing that I had no idea what it was. And I think, you know, I look back now and I recognize there just was this sense of lack, which I still felt on some level unconsciously could be filled by something external, which of course it never can. And it has you chained and hemmed to the treadmill. And so I got present, and it was the most profound time of my life. It was this sort of falling away of these identities, which were things I did. They weren't who I was. And it changed me. It was transformative. And I picked up a pen during that time. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 days before my dad passed on. And I'm sitting upstairs in the, you know, what had been my brother's bedroom. Dad is downstairs in this kind of comatose state with a carer to give us some respite. And I just started to write, and this kind of stream of consciousness just kind of came through me, and I wasn't thinking about it being cathartic or, you know, anything. I wasn't thinking. And that piece of writing evolved into my book Purpose, which Hay House went on to publish. And it was the first thing that I'd really done without an agenda. There was that colorblind moment where it was like, oh, I should do this. So that was also inspiration led or heart led. But the book really, it's the most vulnerable, honest thing I'd ever produced. And in allowing it to actualize, it's taken my life in a completely different direction. So my work, soon enough I went on to make the decision to move to Jamaica because I wanted to live by the ocean and have my son have us both have space and be in nature. So now we live between the two places. I'm in the UK now, and I started the Purpose Academy. We're in our third year now, and it's really a culmination of all of that media experience and my purpose work. And for me, purpose just means coming to be more of who we already are. It's not this big lofty thing that we're supposed to be out here to achieve. It's literally taking off the masks and these ideas, these shoulds about how we're supposed to show up, and getting to know us again, and then living from that space and make it. And the more that we align with that, we can't help but be inspired to do things. But the things that we do are not our purpose. They're just expressions of who we really are. And that just takes the pressure off these things that we're supposed to create, and instead makes, coming back to ourselves the priority beyond fitting into external boxes. Or so I'm still as ambitious as I was, but these days it's driven by something much healthier, just a desire to see what's possible and create impact and be of service. And I guess in many ways, I take the role that health visitor did for me, albeit with professional women, in just seeing in them the possibilities. I guess it's a sort of gift that I have, just to see what they haven't yet seen for themselves, and then taking those tools that I'm so experienced in, of creating a greater visibility and repurposing them for that. So it's sort of PR for a new paradigm, I guess, and it's a 6-month online journey. The Purpose Retreat is epic, and it's in Jamaica for anyone that wants to come and chase waterfalls and just have an incredible time. And that's in January every year. And bigger than a book is my 3-month book course, and I help people to create, to get a minimum of 3 chapters and get published. And that starts September 21st as well. So yeah, thank you for listening.